Guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in yellow and we are learning to multiply and divide integers. So keyword again, following on from the last video, integers. We're focusing on whole numbers, which can be positive or negative again. And we're going to start this video with a bit of an experiment, a bit of an investigation, just to do with some basic multiplication facts. So let's get into this. So 3 times 3, that gets us to 9, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the first 3 the same and we're going to change that to a 2. We've now got 6. We're going to keep going. 3 times 1, that equals to 3. 3 times 0, well, that's equal to 0. And now we're going to get to the negative ones, which are a bit trickier. Negative 3. And if you see that pattern that's happening here, it's reducing by 3 every time. So when we carry on, 3 times negative 2, well, that's going to be negative 6 because of that pattern. And 3 times negative 3, that's going to be equal to negative 9. And same thing, we're carrying on from that pattern. We're now going to flip this last one. We're just going to flip that around to start off our new sequence. So we're going to go negative 3 times 3. And we already know that equals to 9. We're going to leave negative 3 as it is. And we're going to drop it down to 2 like we did for our previous ones. Or sorry, negative 9. And that's going to be negative 6. And then we've got negative 3 times 1. That's going to be negative 3. And again, we've noticed a pattern. This time we're going up in 3s as opposed to down. So if we carry that pattern on, negative 3 times 0, that's going to be 0. And that pattern's all the same. And then we're getting into the negatives. Negative 3 times negative 1. If we carry this pattern on, negative 3, 0, that's going to become positive 3. And then we'll finish it off negative 3 times negative 2. That's positive 6. Negative 3 times negative 3. And that there is 9. And they follow the same pattern where the numbers are getting bigger by 3 every time. And what we've done here is what I think one of the best kind of explanations or demonstrations as to why a negative number times a negative number magically becomes a positive number. So if we ignore the zeros, because we know a number times 0 is 0, we're left with 4 quadrants. So we've got one up here, and that is always positive times positive. So let's write that list here. So positive times positive. And we know, based on all of those answers, the answer is always going to end up with a positive answer. We then move down to our list. We have positive 3 accompanied by a negative number. So that's going to be a positive times a negative. And we can see that every single time that scenario happens, we're resulting in a negative answer. So we've got negative. And then we move up to the top here. Same scenario, except it's the other way around. This time around, we've always got negative 3 times by a positive number. So that's going to be negative times the positive. And they always result in a negative answer. And finally, this is what I think the key thing is, negative times negative. So we've got negative times negative, and all 3 of those resulted in a positive answer. And these are the multiplication rules that we need to be aware of. The next part is just breaking these rules down a little bit more. So the 2 in the middle, positive, negative, and then negative, positive, they have different signs. And they always result in a negative answer. So that's another way to remember it. And if we have a look at the ones on the top and the one on the bottom, for both of those, positive, positive, negative, negative, they've got the same signs. And for both of those, they always resulted in a positive answer. So the screen's looking a bit complicated, a bit messy, there's heaps going, but hopefully the stuff on the left-hand side gives us a good understanding of how the multiplication rules work. And I do want to emphasize the same exact rules apply for division as well. So positive divided by positive is positive, negative divided by negative is positive, and the same for the positive and negative answers, which will result in negative answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the screen, I'm going to get rid of the stuff on the right, and we're going to get into a few examples that just highlight and demonstrate what we've just learnt. Okay, all of that's been cleared. Let's get into some examples. So let's say we've got -6 times 3. The first step I look at is I just think, well, that there is positive, and there by that I meant negative, and that there is positive. So I've got a positive times a negative. So I know my answer is going to be negative. I then focus on the numbers. 6 times 3, that gets me to 18. So one step, we're then going to move on to another step. Let's say 7 times 3. Well, I've identified both of them are positive. Positive times positive is going to be positive. So we can write a plus sign here if we want to. And 7 times 3, 21. So that's going to be positive 21. We don't need that plus sign though if we don't need to. Or if we don't want to, rather. So third question, let's go -11 times -2. So we have a look at the signs. This here is 11 or -11, -2. So we've got negative times negative. The signs are the same, so we're going to have a positive answer. 11 times 2, 22. So hopefully this is beginning to make sense. We'll do a few more. Question 4, let's say 4 times -9. Have a look. Well, that 4 is positive, that 9 is negative. Positive times negative is going to give us a negative answer. We then do the numbers. 4 times 9, 36. So that there would be -36. We'll then have a look at a slightly more complicated example. So let's say -2 times 3 times -4. So we've got 3 numbers. So the rules we've learnt, if you have a look, positive, negative, all of those, they only apply to 2 numbers. When we're looking at multiple or more than 2, we need to break it down into its smaller parts. So let's start with the -2 and the 3. So that's negative and positive, which is going to be a negative answer. And 2 times 3 is 6. So that portion, first 2, they come to -6. And that's going to be multiplied by -4. So we haven't done anything with that yet. We're then going to repeat the same process. We've got -6 over here, -4 over here. They will combine to get positive. 6 times 4, 24. So hopefully that's beginning to make sense, particularly if there's multiple numbers in a string of multiplications. This multiplication will quickly demonstrate or run through a few division questions. So question 6, I've changed pen colors for division. So let's say we've got 9 divided by -3. We're going to do the same process. We're just going to check the signs of each part. So that 9 is positive, that 3 is negative. So a positive and a negative is going to result in a negative answer. We're then going to deal with the numbers. 9 divided by 3 is 3 by itself. We'll have a go at 7. Let's say we've got -28 divided by 7. Same process. Well, that 28 is negative, that 7 is positive. So we've got one of each sign, which is going to be a negative answer. 28 divided by 7 is going to get us to 4. We'll then do question 7. So we've got -44 divided by -11. -44, well, that's a negative. -11, that's a negative. We've got 2 negative numbers being divided by each other, which is going to result in a positive answer because we've got the same sign. So it's going to be positive. Then we deal with the numbers. 44 divided by 11, that's going to get us to 4. And the final question, or I've written question 7 twice, that last one, that should be 8. Question 9, let's do a triple one. So let's do 36 divided by negative 2, and we're going to divide that result by negative 3. So same process as before. We're going to focus on the first two bits. So we've got a positive and a negative, which will result in a negative number. And 36 divided by 2 is negative 18. And that divided by negative 3 is unchanged, so we're going to go divide by negative 3. We're then going to repeat the same for that process. So negative 18 is negative, negative 3 also negative. Two negative numbers will result in a positive number. And then we got 18 divided by 3, and that's going to get us to 6. So that would all come to positive 6. So hopefully you found this video on multiplying and dividing integers useful. Just a reminder about the key rules in green. We need to know when numbers result in positive answers, when they result in negative answers. And just to note, these rules for multiplication are very different to the addition and subtraction rules, so make sure you don't get them confused. All right, thanks so much again for watching the video, guys. Hopefully you found it useful. Now let's get into heaps of practice to make sure we've mastered this skill.